Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Risto Miikkulainen. Risto is the VP of AI Research at Cognizant. Risto, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So Risto, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. Could you give us a little bit of an overview of your background in technology and what your journey has been from where you started off early on, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as the VP of AI Research for Cognizant Advanced AI Labs?
Yes, of course. It has been indeed a journey. I started as a starry-eyed youngster who wanted to build HAL 2.0, one that doesn't kill its creators. And I wanted to study AI. I wanted to study mathematics and the foundations of intelligence. Got a degree from UCLA, PhD from UCLA in '86. Before that, actually, from Helsinki University of Technology in applied mathematics as a foundation. And then I've been a professor at the University of Texas at Austin since 1990. After I graduated. And then around 2015, wanted to take the AI and the results of the real world. It seemed to me that we were ready, not quite to build HAL 2.0, but at least change the world and bring AI to the world and help the world with it. I met Babak Hojad from Sentient at the time, a startup, and we had the same kind of a vision and therefore joined and had been working with Babak and the team since then. We got acquired 2018 by Cognizant, and we now have an exciting new opportunity at Cognizant. We have an AI lab, Cognizant AI Lab, which has the mandate of developing AI further and building the foundations that then Cognizant will take to the world. And they have a lot of connections with different fields and companies, and hopefully this will then result in actually successfully deploying AI in various areas. So that's the background.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I know we could have spent the whole interview talking about your background because it's so broad and detailed and you've done so many incredible things, but focusing what you just mentioned there, the Advanced AI Lab at Cognizant. Most of our listeners will be familiar with Cognizant as a business, so we don't need to spend too much time there. But I want to talk a little bit more about the lab, its mission, and then your role as the VP of AI Research. So can you walk us through the evolution of the lab itself, where the objective originally came from, what you guys were tasked with, and then what it's been like since its launch?
We've always had pretty much the same vision, and that has not really changed. We believe that the world is ready, not for everything, not for all kinds of AI, but especially AI that helps people make better decisions. So this has always been the focus. It's not to replace people, but empower them with AI. And that means machine learning, collecting large data sets and learning patterns about them and presenting those patterns to people, but also suggesting what actions should be done, not just predict what will happen, but what you should do about it. Still, the human is in a loop and the human is still making decisions, but making them based on useful suggestions and even suggestions that they might overlook otherwise. So that's been the philosophy for the lab for a long time now, but it's the world at first. World wasn't really ready, and we started with areas like stock trading, where you really don't need to have customers, and mostly it's really just being successful on its own. But now I think the world is ready, and we are talking to a lot of companies who have various goals about, say, spending marketing dollars, doing industrial design, machine design, healthcare optimization, helping people who have aphasia to recover faster. It's a whole range of possible applications now that involves people and human decision making. So a big change in Cognizant has been that a lot of it has been staff augmentation and actual writing applications for customers. And now what we are doing is actually building new AI and building this product, this platform that we can now take to customers and help them do better based on the software that we have. But that still requires not just the original research, which is our lab's strength. We publish in academic journals and go to conferences with academics. In that sense, it's academic research and science. But also, we solve problems that matter. For instance, trustworthiness. If AI comes up with a suggestion, can you trust it? If it makes a prediction, what are the confidence intervals? So those are some of the techniques we had to develop when we realized that in order to take it to the world, we have to have those technologies. Mm-hmm. Now what we are doing is building this infrastructure so that it is easy to deploy from task to task what we have built. And that's been the evolution of the lab. And now we have Cognizant's backing, we have the spotlight. And part of that actually happened outside of us. The LLMs, the Gen AI happened, and all of a sudden there's spotlight on AI. But you can't solve all the problems with Gen AI. You still need to have, sometimes you need to have data, and you need to have support for decision making. You need to have multiple agents that work together. That's the technology we bring to the table. We use LLMs, we use Gen AI, of course, but there's other pieces that actually make it actionable, and that's our strength.
So, Risto, there's so much within that we could unpack, in part because Cognizant is such a global organization with customers of all sizes in all industries. Since launching the lab, are there any recent or standout examples that you're particularly proud of, or you found exciting to take the advanced AI conversation to a customer, whether they approached you for a solution or you came to them with a suggestion, and what's come out the other side? Anything you could share with us that demonstrates just how advanced this is and has been, and successful it's been for both Cognizant and its customer?
Yes, of course, several customer success stories where we actually built something that they use and they benefit from it. But to me, the most exciting and productive engagement was with Allergan company, AbbVie company, where we actually worked with their scientists to build a better evaluator for their product, which was Botox treatment, filler treatment. And we had a natural experiment in trying to use AI to build a better system for evaluating whether the treatment works, whether the person looks younger after the treatment. And they had their very capable data scientists to try to do the same, build by hand a system that would do that. And it was a friendly competition. And in the end, we found out that AI was better at designing these learning systems. And we actually wrote a joint paper together, which even won an award. And it was a great example of how academic researchers and industry folks can come together and build something. It's the first case where AI is actually used to build a metric for measuring something that's actually not that easy to measure, like whether a treatment works, whether it makes a person look younger, and how much. So this was, of course, a successful engagement, and it can be used by physicians and patients to estimate whether to do the treatment and make more informed decisions. But it was also interesting because it was so collaborative, and it requires bringing together expertise from the domain with expertise in machine learning, and also demonstrate the value of AI in particular in doing so.
Yeah. And how much of your background, being both on the commercial side with Cognizant and prior to that, obviously, Sentient Technologies, coupled with your experience for almost 35 years as a professor at UT Austin, how much of the success in that collaboration do you associate with your own personal experience being on both sides of the conversation? Because it's a difficult one to navigate, and we hear it all the time, the bridging the gap from academia to industry. Many people who are in the workforce can often struggle to make that switch, but you've got 2 feet firmly on both sides, and that recent example demonstrates it. So what's your take on that, and what have you learned from doing it successfully for so many years?
Well, I definitely learned that taking AI to the real world is really hard. I thought that I would just go and change the world with what I know, and then I realized that the world doesn't want to change. and that is a big focus, that we have to take into account what people actually want and what they need and make them want this change. So we have to go to people whose work we are affecting and making sure that we're actually helping them and not replacing them or doing something that is scary because it's such a big change. And that's how you actually take AI into the world, that you take these baby steps and gradually build more successful applications where every time you do it, you see the value. And you want to take it because you're doing better, why not use it? So this practical constraints in academia, if you do something smart, if you do something that nobody has done before, it has already value. Other people can build on it. In the real world, it is a little more complicated than that, and we have to take into account the stakeholders, other people. And that's been quite a educational process for me, and also working with a lot more diverse group of people. It's not just me trying to impress my friends, my colleagues, rather in academia. I try to outdo them, but actually have to convince many different stakeholders that this is valuable, taking into account a lot more constraints. But it can be done. I mean, it's a learning process. And also, there's a lot of value of working with other people who are experts in other areas than you are. And that, of course, takes a lot of skill. We have collaboration in academia, but it's usually bringing in expertise that is at the same level of academic excellence. But then here, it's expertise that is across a vertical expertise also. Somebody has to put it to practice. Somebody has to maintain it. All of these are issues that you don't have to think about when you're an academic. It's a difficult challenge in that sense. But building a team, and somebody has to understand what the elements are and make sure that nothing is missing. And that's required. That's different from academic.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Can you give us a look behind the scenes of the lab in its current form, from the size of the organization right now, how it's distributed, your role in being one of the VPs there, and then walk us through the possible journey, particularly over the next couple of years as Cognizant continues to invest more in its AI lab and the opportunity that exists within the customer base.
Yes, this is a big picture, and it requires many elements and contributors. So our role is in the Cognizant AI Labs is to do the research and development. We have a pure research team that solves scientific problems, and then a development team that puts those into practice, into the platform, the NeuroAI platform that's called now. And then beyond that, we also have, of course, thought leadership, and we go out and talk about it, and AI for good projects that we are engaged in, which might be climate change or medical treatments. Those are also collaborations, academic collaborations largely, and we take care of those as well. And we also now have a role in responsible AI, which we still have to define and lead. And I think it's going to be very exciting, not just to try to avoid harm, but try to encourage positive impacts of AI. So those are all part of our team. Making these applications happen in the real world is a different part of Cognizant, and that team is being built, but it will include people who go to companies and find out what their pain points are and whether AI can be used in them. And the software we developed allows very quickly coming up with a prototype. And that's important, that possible customers, the benefits of this technology, beneficiaries of this technology, can immediately see what it would look like. Here's the data that you have. Here are the predictions that are happening, and here are the prescriptions. And this is how much you save, or this is how much more money you make, or this is how many more lives you save, or whatever it is, the outcomes. You can see it as well. So it becomes concrete. So that's another part of the team, those who are doing this, the opportunities and scoping, and then the demonstrations, and then, of course, the people who build it. So that team is outside of ours, but it's a delivery team in Cognizant that's responsible for that, as well as maintenance. Any AI system has to be maintained after it's deployed. That's also done by people who are specialists on that. And I think that's something that hasn't yet happened that much because AI hasn't been out there for a very long time, but we have to be aware that these systems have to be continuously maintained and revised and improved. There's more data that comes in, and the variables change, the people change. And that's also something we have to build, how to do that efficiently and effectively in the future. But that's what I'm saying. It takes a village to do some of this. Our piece is to originate it and then perhaps try to advise some of these other teams. But it is much larger than our own team.
Obviously, your background quite interesting, from the Sentient Technologies to the acquisition, now working in Cognizant and more recently in the Advanced AI Labs. So you've got a unique perspective of the different components of what's going on. You talked about there the broader team, and a lot of it was the team that needs to be built. Speaking to an audience of potential future colleagues, future employees, if you were speaking to an individual that you felt was the right fit for the Advanced AI Labs team, what is it that you would tell them about the work, the environment, the team, working with the resources that Cognizant has that would get them interested and excited enough to join Cognizant over some of the other great opportunities also available?
We do cutting edge research to begin with. If you are interested in solving fundamental problems in AI, like trustworthiness, can we actually believe that what the AI is suggesting is worthwhile? Can we trust it? That's a fundamental question we've been asking for a long time, and I'm building different approaches to different kinds of technologies. And then multi-agent systems, like how you coordinate these elements, different kinds of AI, as well as just maybe LLMs that have been system prompted differently to have different personalities. How do you actually coordinate a system of multiple agents so they do better than a single agent? Those are fascinating scientific questions. And if you want to join the research team, you got to be excited about questions like that, solving fundamental questions that are now vexing and important. That's actually, so it's not just that they are hard, they also have to be important if we want to address them. So that's part of it. Or maybe you are part of the development part of the Cognizant AI Labs, and that means putting those into practice. How do you actually implement that kind of idea or that kind of a research result so that it can be replicated on multiple industries, multiple use cases, and build a system that people can use, and build a system that people can understand and can follow and measure. This is not the same as solving a scientific vexing problem. It is making it practical. And that requires a lot of expertise, a lot of thinking, a lot of understanding, but it's a different kind and very important one as well. And then, of course, you have to be able to talk about it with others. You have to be able to talk to people who are actually in the world and would benefit from it. That's part of the thought leadership and part of the evangelism that we have to do still in AI. And also, you may be part of an AI for Good project. Climate change, you want to actually improve the world and you want to make it happen, make AI work for us so that there's a clear benefit for the whole humankind. That's how we view those AI for Good projects. And if that's something that you like, that would be a really great fit.
Final question for me, Risto, and I want to bring this full circle because obviously you have tons of experience in the commercial world, holding a very senior position in the bleeding edge of AI research. But you also have long been a professor educating people on the advancements in technology. Knowing what you know about AI in its current state, if you were speaking to an audience of graduates or people who are in the AI space, what advice would you share with them so they could stay as advanced as possible or benefit from the evolution of AI over the next few years? Would it be focus on skills, particular developing technologies, or would it be the other side, the soft skills, the people side? From a holistic view, what would you recommend that people work on from a skills base to stay current and stay in demand?
As I said before, it takes a village. There are roles that have different requirements. Your development of the science, that does require good preparation, a PhD basically, and mathematics, statistics, coding is part of it still, even though, of course, we use LLMs to code, but understanding software systems, formalism, reasoning, logic, a solid background on those fundamental sciences is really crucial if you want to do the science. But there are many other roles as well. You still have to understand the limits and risks of AI. And now there are lots of coursework, courses that you can, and of course articles and books that you can read that educate people about those. But there are also many voices, and they are a little contradictory. And the world is, the field of AI is changing so rapidly that it is a little difficult to keep up with that. But that's another skill that you have to develop, not just the basic science, but also this kind of critical thinking of everything that's coming at you, all this material, all these ideas, all this discussion, all these debates. What part of it do you actually follow and which part you think will be less important? Critical thinking is essential. And that does take a little bit of experience. It does take reading. It does take soft skills, like you suggested, talking to people and evaluating them and their ideas. But also, AI is now more accessible than it's ever been, because it used to be very fragmented into many different areas and specific skills, and it took a long time to develop those skills and be able to, say, write code of their systems. But now, with such good tools that we have, computationally and open source software tools, it is actually possible to do something quite quickly, relatively quickly anyway. And also the fact that these LLMs are so easily accessible, you interface with them using natural language. So you can build something, if you're clever, with relatively little of this kind of technical training too, on the other side of the spectrum. So the biggest point is to be excited about it and not be afraid of it. There is a niche, most likely, for you and your background. And of course, you do have to have the fundamental skills, like I said, some technical understanding and critical thinking. But you can find a niche where you can make a difference. And this is much more open to this diversity than AI science has ever been, I think. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Risto, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. Really appreciate you sharing some insight, obviously giving us an incredible look behind the scenes of the exciting work happening at Cognizant's AI Advanced Lab and the scale of the opportunity, both for the customers across all industries, but also for people to come and join Cognizant who are interested in this, either on the research side or on the execution and development. So we really appreciate your time. We wish you, the team, and everyone at Cognizant AI Labs the very best of luck in the months and years to come, and look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.